Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar, How to Leverage Glassdoor Analytics. My name is Nina. I'm one of the marketing coordinators over at Glassdoor, and I will be your moderator for the day. So a couple of housekeeping tips for attendees before we get started. Your audio is streaming over the web, so please make sure that your speakers are turned on and turned up. All lines will be muted to avoid background noise, but you can submit questions at any time using the Q&A tab in the lower left corner of your window. To be mindful of everybody's time, we will save all Q&A towards the end of the presentation, but please feel free to submit those questions whenever you may have them. I'd like to invite you all to join the conversation with us socially using the hashtag GDChat, as we will be live tweeting throughout the webinar. And now I'd like to introduce our amazing speakers for the day. First, we have Cody Lutland, who is the social media strategist at KF FutureStep, as well as the Global Talent Acquisition RPO at Alcon. And then we have our very own Chris Miller, who is an enterprise account executive here at Glassdoor. So without further ado, Chris, I will let you go ahead and take it away for us.
Thank you so much, Nina. I appreciate it, and we appreciate everybody joining here today. A quick agenda, and we'll try to keep this very efficient. Simply why metrics matter, and ultimately why Glassdoor matters at the end of the day. We want to help you, by the end of this conversation, understand your Glassdoor data. We'll do a quick spotlight with Cody and what he's done with their Glassdoor data and analytics with Alcon. And then we'll wrap it up by showing you what you can do today to get started. And then, as Nina said, we'll end with some Q&A. So first and foremost, at a very high level, metrics matter and ultimately Glassdoor matters because today's candidates are now spending more time researching companies than they ever have before during their job search. And this is because today's candidates treat their job search as a critical decision, one where they rely on reviews, research, and referrals before making a decision on ultimately where they want to work. And we find that even candidates who are referred by employees are still using Glassdoor to get the full story. The reason behind this is because how companies successfully attract talent today has changed. Job seekers are behaving much more like consumers, and companies are realizing that employer brand is just as important as consumer brand. With more access to information than ever before, what we're finding is that job seekers are now very carefully considering their choices. And we can all relate to this. We all go online to research before we buy, whether it's just through a Google search or on Amazon or TripAdvisor or CNET. And even for relatively insignificant decisions, we do a ton of research first. Millennials will spend an hour and a half on Yelp looking at the best place to find brunch. So think about the kind of research we do before making an even more important life decision like choosing a job. Our research shows us that on average, job seekers use 18 different sources and look at between 7 or 8 reviews before they even apply for a job. And so these job seekers today want to learn the critical information about a company before applying, before interviewing, and before accepting an offer. Ultimately, they want a window to learn what it's really like to work for a company, and they want to get a feel for that culture, the leadership team, the career advancement opportunities before even applying for that position. And so Glassdoor comes into play because of all this wealth of information online. Candidates have really high expectations. They want more than just the job description itself. They want to hear everyone's perspective. Our research shows us that the top 5 things they want to know when researching a company is what makes it an attractive place to work, what the compensation is like, what the benefits will be, what that company's mission, vision, and values are, and even just basic information about the company that can sometimes be really hard to find without Glassdoor. And finally, most importantly, is that these people tell us they want transparency. 90% of them want to work for a company that embraces transparency. And I'm still not sure what the other 10% want, but this is why it's critical for you as the employer to establish some baseline metrics and understand what your employees are saying about you on Glassdoor. It ultimately impacts the future of your organization. If people are your company's most important asset, you must listen to what they're sharing externally. So that brings us to our first real key recommendation, which is to do just that, just listen. Honest feedback ultimately will help your organization continuously adjust and grow and improve. A lot of companies are already giving their employees a forum to leave feedback. Glassdoor is one of them that will be taking place all the time, whether you're asking for it or not. And ultimately, the question is, are you listening to that feedback, and are you making sense of it and applying it to your recruiting strategy? We want you to be able to measure. Take a look at your recruiting strategy. Does it match the behavior of your candidates on Glassdoor? Who are your competitors? How do you stack up against them for the war for talent? We're going to answer some of these questions today in terms of how you can find that out. And if you're at the end of the day or at the end of a fiscal year making a case for different recruitment initiatives, budget for employer brand, do you have the numbers to back it up? Do you have the data to show that that's something that you should be doing? And ultimately, you want to iterate. And Cody's going to talk a little bit about that today. What worked 10 years ago or even 2 years ago, we find ultimately will not work today. So that brings us to understanding what's already out there, what's being shared on Glassdoor. The benefits of doing so when it comes to understanding your Glassdoor data, we want you to be able to use the candidate demographics we offer to define who your candidates really are. You might be surprised by what you find. You can compare hiring processes. Where are you exceeding and where are you falling behind? We can analyze interview feedback, believe it or not, and we'll talk a little bit about that today. And you can just spot basic trends in your reviews, both good and bad, and utilize your company ratings and our updates platform to share messages with potential candidates. This is a brief overview of some of the tools that are available on Glassdoor today. So you're able to see a brief glimpse into what we call our Employer Center of Glassdoor, which at the end of the call will show you how to access. Every company has one, just about. It's where we hold all of this special data that's being shared about your company, as well as the demographics of your potential candidate base. Another reality is that we all want to know how we stack up against our competitors. Even Glassdoor does this, which is why analyzing candidate behavior in order to navigate and manage the competitive landscape is critical. So you can measure demographics, profile traffic, followers, engagement, and impressions on your company updates, analyze rating trends, and see comparisons to competitors, et cetera, all within this Employer Center. All of this allows you to see how to measure, and this is helping organizations understand whether or not their strategy at the end of the day is working, as well, again, as seeing how they stack up against the competition in this war for talent. So at the end of the day, all that data doesn't really affect much unless your potential candidates are seeing it too, and they are. Typically in the thousands per year. What we're looking at is an example of a company's Glassdoor profile page traffic that they can find in their Employer Center. Many of the customers that I talk with, even if they're large, well-known brands, they see more people coming each month to their company's profile on Glassdoor than their own careers website. And this is, again, why it's so important to take seriously what's being said on this platform. We also allow companies the ability to see who these people are, where they're located, what their demographic breakdown is, and by evaluating the types of candidates that are researching you and applying for your company and applying to what resources, you can find out ultimately who's funneling into your application process and who's using Glassdoor to do that. These are all important questions to ask yourself: who they are, where are they located, and from these questions, you can start formulating a strategy on what you should ultimately be telling this audience. Another interesting feedback that candidates on Glassdoor leave is actually feedback on the interview process. And so by using built-in word clouds that we have, we can begin to see common trends in that interview process. Once they say yes or no, and they'll leave that feedback on Glassdoor very open and honestly. I accepted an offer. I declined an offer. I had a positive experience, or I had a negative experience. People are sharing this on Glassdoor specifically, and companies have access to see that data. I have a really quick story to tell. There was a tech company in the Bay Area around San Francisco that actually lost a senior engineering candidate because they rented him a cheap Kia Rio rental car. No offense to Kia. That's the feedback that this guy left. And he specifically said that that was one of the reasons why he declined the offer, is because other companies, for a high-level engineering candidate like this, it kind of rolled out the red carpet. And this particular company didn't, and he decided to decline their offer because of that. However petty you might think that is, it happened, and he shared it on Glassdoor. And moving forward, this company opted to get updates on a weekly basis as to what people were saying about their interview process. And we'd encourage you to do the same if you're open to it. Using interview feedback is one of the more powerful ways to use your Glassdoor analytics. Here you get a deep dive into how your own candidate experience compares to your competitors. This information will help you distill actionable takeaways and areas for improvement, ultimately in the race to win top talent. And if you think about it, once these candidates get into this job-seeking mentality, efficient candidates are applying for multiple positions, not just yours. I think everybody in recruitment realizes this. So it's important to look at what your current employees are saying about the interview process and how you stack up. So if you look at this chart on the screen, assume you're company A, that first column. 60% of the people who have interviewed have said they've had a positive experience, and that's great. But almost a quarter of them have actually said they had a negative experience. And using Glassdoor, you can dig into that data and find out why, just like our previous example. Another example, here at Glassdoor, we've worked really hard to improve our candidate experience. And when our head of HR looked at our hiring process, we started to realize we had 7 steps to just complete the interview process. And we cared about making the right hires, but we also found out that we were losing people to the competition because we were taking too long to get these people through that process. And we learned that through our own interview feedback on our own platform. When it comes to reviews, that's one of the key areas where you'll find a lot of valuable information in these analytics. Here, using word clouds, you can pinpoint different patterns in specific roles or offices. And I think everybody knows what a word cloud is. What this does is it takes the most common phrases from the pros section of an employee's review and also the cons section. We try to be very balanced on Glassdoor, and we ask everyone that leaves a review to leave both a pro and a con. And what we do is we create word clouds for companies to help them understand what the good and what the bad is of their company. And my best customers, they share this data with their executive teams on a quarterly basis. It can sometimes be painful, but always it is eye-opening at the same time to be able to understand how you can leverage this data to make a change. And finally, we allow companies to post social updates on their Glassdoor profile. Whether you're a paying customer or not, you can push out updates on your Glassdoor profile, and we can help you measure the engagement on that, which posts are most engaging, etc. And you can leverage this data to hone in on what content works best for your audience. We've helped you understand the audience, the demographics, the locations, the job types, and you can leverage that data with your company updates data to see what's working best and what's most compelling to these individuals. And finally, one more thing, the reviews, of course. And you can see these trends from your company rating over time, and you can even look at the breakdowns of your rating. How do people think about your culture and values? What's the work-life balance like? As tough as it can be, you can see how people rate your senior management, the comp and benefits of the company, and the career opportunities. All these different segments that your current and former employees can rate on Glassdoor are completely visible to all of your potential candidates. And so if someone cares about culture and values, you better believe that's one of the things that they're going to be looking at. Is out of a scale of 1 to 5, how do your current and former employees rate those cultures and values? For me, one of the big ones was work-life balance. I have a family. I want to be working all the time, but I want to spend time with them as well. And potential candidates can see that type of information that's being shared on Glassdoor. And we know these 5 areas are most important to candidates when researching new opportunities. So our suggestion is to use this information to measure sentiment over time, because you can see the trend line over time on Glassdoor, and spot areas for improvement, or even focus on areas that are working well. So that ends my first section. I will graciously pass it off to Cody, who is an awesome storyteller, who will walk us through some of what he's done with his group at Alcon. Cody?
Chris, what a fantastic job. I almost feel like I could just sit back and listen to you share our story, because many of the resources that you have highlighted are the exact things that we've been doing over at Alcon. It's fantastic to be with everybody today. Thanks for joining the call. I hope to share some insights and some things that we've done that have been helpful. I don't know necessarily that it's the right way, but we've had some great success, and our partnership with Glassdoor has been incredible. From our account managers, folks in the analytics team, Nina, Chris, and others, we've just had an outstanding experience with Glassdoor. So I just wanted to share some things with you today and hope that you'll find them helpful. First of all, I don't know if you've seen, the Alice in Wonderland movie. They've done adaptions and obviously the book itself. There's this famous moment when Alice is walking down the path once she gets to Wonderland. She doesn't know which way to go, and the Cheshire Cat with his giant grin up in the tree is there kind of talking with her and throwing out some Yoda-like wisdom. Alice asks, "Would you tell me which way I should go from here?" The Cheshire Cat responds, "That depends a good deal on where you want to go." Alice responds, "I don't much care where." And the Cheshire Cat then replies, "Then it doesn't much matter which way you go." Well, sometimes that's how folks treat social media and some of the digital platforms that we have available to us in the recruiting industry. Sometimes we don't know which way to go, and so we just do things. But it does matter where we go. Every time I work with a client, I begin by asking why questions. Simon Sinek has a great book and TED Talk titled Start With Why. I can't recommend it enough. But why is a powerful question, and sometimes you need to ask why over and over and over again to finally get to the real answers. I've been told that sometimes you need to ask why 5 times to finally get to the root of perhaps the problem. I have 4 kids myself, and so I get the why question for about everything every day. But sometimes in business we do things just because everybody else is doing it or somebody says that we should or other companies are doing it. And this is true sometimes with the platforms and the digital technologies that are available. We are better because we do it right. We need to know exactly what we do. And so when I meet with individuals, I usually say we need to have a session and talk about your why. What is your why? And what do I mean by why questions? And what are some how questions? Here are just a few examples. Why do we want to use Glassdoor? Glassdoor is a platform that's a different tool than other social media platforms. It's different than other platforms that are available to recruiter. And if you don't know exactly why you're using it, then you might just use it and not really get the benefit or success that you need. So a great question to begin with is always ask, why do we want to use Glassdoor? Another great why question is, why do employees leave good or bad reviews on Glassdoor? Sometimes I've heard, and maybe you've heard the same thing, Glassdoor is just a place where people go to complain and gripe. It can be, and if you're not taking advantage of your profile, you might find that there are things going on and things that are being said about your company that you're unaware of, and you might be bothered by that and frustrated and think of Glassdoor as just a place where negativity happens. But you have to ask yourself, why did employees leave bad reviews? Why are they leaving good reviews? And another why question might be, why do we or why don't we respond to reviews on Glassdoor? That's a powerful question. Sometimes these reviews happen, they go, and a candidate will come in, review the company, take a look at what people are saying about the company, and they'll see that the company has not responded to negative reviews. The company has never said, "Hey, great job," to an associate who left, a thank you or a great review. And so you have to ask yourself, why do we or don't we respond to reviews on Glassdoor? Once you've answered those questions, why, you can start to ask the how questions. How will using Glassdoor meet our company objectives? How can we share information from Glassdoor to bring about organizational change? Chris talked about either a candidate experience or a current employee or a former employee leaving information on Glassdoor. How can you use that information to affect change in your organization? How can you use that review to maybe speak with a leader, even though it may be painful or uncomfortable, to say, this is a pattern of reviews that we've seen. How can you use that information to bring about change? And then another how question could be, how can we become a more engaged employer? How can we respond, what can we what can we say, or what can we do to be engaged in a candidate's experience or an associate's experience who perhaps have anonymously, left a review on Glassdoor? How can we engage with them? And I think that these are powerful questions that we ask, and we need to ask right off the bat. I usually sit down and I'll meet with someone and talk through strategy and say, strategy is, the most important thing that you can do before you set out is you need to have a game plan. You look at great sports teams. You look at great organizations. They have a strategy for why they do what they do, and then they go out and they do it. Well, it's the same thing with Glassdoor. You have to know why you're using Glassdoor. What is it that you want to accomplish? How are you going to accomplish that? And Chris has done a nice job at illustrating many of the tools that are available to you to make sure that you can have a great experience on Glassdoor. And so I always just start with the why and the how questions, because you really get to the root of why you're doing it. And if you ever run into the answer of, well, we're just doing it because someone said we should, well, then let's evaluate that. Let's go back and say, okay, why did they say we should do it? Or what are the results that we're going to see if we do engage? So just some things that I wanted to share right off the bat. And it's exactly what I did when I came to Alcon, is I watched, I listened, I learned from the feedback that was available. I sat down with my supervisor and I said, it's probably going to take a good month for me just to audit and listen to what's being said on all of our social media platforms, but specifically Glassdoor because of the review feature that is there where, individuals can come in and they can leave these reviews. So I took a month to listen, to read all of the reviews, and then another month to develop a strategy for each of the platforms that we were working with. We wanted to make sure that we had a good presence on Glassdoor and create a strategy so that we could identify how many people were visiting, what people were saying, what kind of reviews they were leaving, what kind of ratings they were giving the company, the CEO, and other aspects on Glassdoor. And as a result of listening and watching, and it took time, it took over a month to be able to do all of this, I came up with a game plan. This was the strategy. Why did we want to use Glassdoor? Well, we needed to engage with every person who left a review and try to respond to every single review. That review, or the person that left the review, may not ever see that we responded. Sure, they might see that, we said thank you for your review, or we're sorry that this had happened, or whatever the case may be. They may never come back to it. They may have just vented. They may have just, thrown it out there. But someone who's coming in to look at your company, someone who got a job offer that's going to come to Glassdoor and say, I want to learn more about the company, they will see if or if not, if you responded to that review, especially if it was a negative review. Does this person have a good point? Are they seeing something that the company isn't aware of? They haven't responded to it. Maybe they've really hit close to home. And so seeing a response showed that the company was going to be engaged. So we needed to engage with every single person who left a review on Glassdoor. Another thing that I learned, and as we built the strategy, is we needed to do a better job of using our associates, the employees who currently worked at Alcon, to become brand ambassadors and share why they loved working at the company. Every single one of us, some associates and employees who love their jobs every day and who come to work just with a passion to do good things. And sometimes we handcuff them. How can we engage them? How can we get them excited? How can we help them share that passion on a review? Can we invite them? Can we talk to them? What can we do to do that? So that was something that we needed to do, was do a better job of using our associates to become brand ambassadors. And then lastly, I was able to identify 3 groups of associates or employees from basically what they were saying in the reviews. It was basically a segment audience. And so I was able to kind of segment it into 3. There were the old-timers, the group who had worked at the company for a long time, had been there 10-plus years, and they would leave reviews, positive, negative. There was a second group that when the company was acquired by Novartis, that they shared a different type of review. Sometimes there was somewhat of they weren't sure, did they work for the parent company, did they work for Alcon, did they work for Novartis? And so sometimes there was some confusion in the reviews. And the last group was a group that was part of the newer associates when we had a new CEO come into Alcon earlier this year. And so you have these 3 segments, and I was able to look at the reviews and kind of weed out, even though they're anonymous, be able to say, okay, this person's review kind of fits in the first category, right, the pre-acquisition. The second review kind of speaks to this identity crisis. They've been here maybe only 3 to 5 years. And then this latter group are people who have been here that are pretty recent, pretty new to the company. And then from that, we were able to go and talk with our HR leaders and others to say, here are the demographics of people leaving reviews, positive or negative. Here's what they're saying. Here's the concerns that they have. And let's see if we can't somehow engage them or speak to the concerns that are being addressed. Are they reliable? Are they valid concerns? Do we need to address them? How do we address them, and things like that. But unless I could go through and actually read the reviews and spend some time actually seeing what people were saying, I wouldn't have been able to identify these segments, and we wouldn't be able to kind of look at what are some of the plans that we have now to make sure we're engaging associates and making sure they feel connected to the company, making sure that they're being heard, and if there are changes that need to happen at the company, that we can begin to affect those changes. And so seeing the reviews and the data was helpful. It helped us to put a light on where change needed to happen. And we couldn't have done that without the help of basically the reviews. So from there, this is who we are. And one of the things I let people know right off the bat is I always say, look, first thing you can do is you can go claim your profile. It's going to happen. People are going to leave reviews whether you are involved in it or not. They're going to go out, they're going to leave reviews about the company. They're going to be positive. They're going to be negative. They're going to say things. They're going to rate the CEO. And it's all going to happen whether you want to participate or not. The conversations in the hallway happen whether you're in the hallway or not. So get in the hallway, claim your profile, and start engaging with individuals. If you do nothing else, at least do that. And I'm probably preaching to the choir. Most of you probably have already done that, but if you haven't, that's my first tip is just go out, claim your account, and begin making some updates and some change. People are going to participate on Glassdoor right now. Right now they might be leaving a review. So you need to get out there and you need to see what's happening and be part of the conversation. The other thing you need to do is make sure that your profile is updated. One of the things that I found when I was auditing is we had outdated photos. We had outdated cover art. We had outdated information. And so make sure that maybe you have some new images, your logo if it's been updated, or maybe you just change it to make it look fresh and new. Make sure that the data and the information that you provide is accurate. Fill out as much as you can to make sure that you're providing the information that a job seeker or a candidate would want to know about your company. And maybe try to put on the glasses from the perspective of, I don't work here, what would I want to know, or does this make sense as you put information down? Also, maybe take a walk around campus. Take your phone with you. Everybody has a camera now. Take a phone on your lunch break, walk around the campus, take some pictures, and you see there on the screen some of the photos that we've captured at events, our career fairs, and just shots of the campus. They have these great drones now. You can put a drone up in the sky and take campus shots of your facility if you have a large office. If you just have an office space, take a picture of the building. People love the architecture. Chris talked about the work-life balance. Well, part of that is the environment that you're going to be spending time in. If you're sitting in an office, what does that office look like? What does the building look like? What do the surroundings look like? Is there a park nearby? Is it a safe parking lot? Just things like that. So you can see, if you were to click on our photos, we have several photos in there, and we have different sites throughout the United States and throughout the world because Alcon is a global leader in eye care. They have facilities all over the world, and so we've tried to capture images of our plants and facilities globally, and they're represented here as well. So try to make sure that you're capturing what it looks like, kind of a day in the life of what an associate may be. Try to capture daytime, nighttime, and just show the beauty of the campus or the workspace or the great team members that you'll be working with. Here's an example of some of the reviews. And one of the things that we wanted to do is we wanted to make sure, as I said before, that we were responding to every person who left a review. We set a goal to respond to 100% of all reviews. That's a huge goal as people are leaving reviews. How can I go in and respond to them? So a couple things that we were able to do. First, you need to be actively engaged to do it. You need to set up the email so that you get notified anytime a review shows up. That way, instantly, you can find out, every day, oh, here's the new reviews that have gone in. Go in, look at them. That way you're only dealing with a couple each day. You're not dealing with, tens, 20s, hundreds of reviews. Just one a day or two a day. My time became so limited by trying to build our social strategy, as well as I also manage our onboarding program. And so I actually facilitate and built the program that we use at Alcon when we welcome new associates. And in onboarding training, we actually do a 2.5-day onboarding. And so I facilitate that. So I'm kind of out of pocket or almost out of office for 2.5 days every other week as we onboard associates. So I was finding that there was no way for me to be able to go in, even though this was one of my original goals to respond to every review, because time just wouldn't allow it. And I'm sure that you feel the same way. Resources were such that we were able to talk and bring on social media specialists. Jana Bremmeyer has been on our team since the summer, and that was one of the first things that we did. And she's done a fantastic job at setting, again, the email reminder that when a notice comes in, she's able to go in and respond. And she and I sat down over the summer, and we said, okay, here was one of the original goals that I had of responding at 100% to the reviews that come in. How can we go about doing it? We brainstormed ideas. One of the things we came up with was, well, it would be nice to be able to have some pre-written answers. How do we go in, but not sound canned or not sound authentic? So what we did is we came up with 25 approved phrases by the company that they were comfortable with. And as long as this wasn't an escalated review that was negative in some way that would require attention, from one of the departments or legal or something like that, if it were just, a green or maybe a yellow review for the most part, we'd be able to just use any of these 25 phrases. And then we could mix and match the phrases to combine them to create these unique responses to every review. That way when a review comes in, the notification pops up in your email, you click on it, you read the review, you say, oh, I'm going to use these 2 or 3 phrases, and I'm going to respond to the person right away. I'm going to say thank you for the review. I'm going to say I'm sorry that you had that situation. We appreciate you taking time. All of those kind of phrases that we created and got approved so that we could respond. And this is just an example of, as the responses come in, we've been able to, since May, give 100% responses to each review. That's huge, and that was a huge undertaking for us, and Jana has done a fantastic job. She's just awesome at being able to spend some time doing that, because I was in a position I wasn't able to do it. And maybe you'll need to find somebody on your team who can do that. Maybe there's someone who you can task with just the responsibility to go in and review and respond to the reviews and to make sure that those things are up to date. Maybe that's something that you can't do. Maybe you have an intern that you can have help you with that. There are a lot of opportunities and possibilities, but you have to have a designated individual who will make it part of their assignment to maybe spend 30 minutes a day, and that's probably all it would take to just check as those reviews come in, read the review, have some pre-approved phrases, respond to them in such a way that is pleasant, unique, and really compliments the person who's leaving a positive review, and also gives hope and direction to the person who left a negative review, but more so leaves a review and a response for the next person who comes in to see how you responded. Did you recoil after a negative response? Did you provide a solution or help? How did you sound? Were you angry? Were you frustrated? Or did you give some insight and direction that, thank you for sharing this review, even though it may have been a negative one. We appreciate your feedback, and that's how we're going to change. Those kind of things are really going to help the next person who comes and hears or sees your reviews that are there. So with these real-time responses, we were able to do some great things. When I first got to Alcon, it was taking sometimes 3 weeks to get an approved response to review, because like you, sometimes people, recoil with that negativity. They're like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? The place is on fire. And they call meetings, they have conversations. How do we respond to this? And so what we were able to do with creating these approved phrases and then putting in a protocol process to be able to escalate issues, with a small team to be able to evaluate a response, provide the correct information on those escalated needs that were kind of the red area, right? You have green, yellow, and red. And then through that protocol, we were able to cut our response time from 3 weeks down to 1 business day. So we're talking less than 8 hours. When someone puts up a negative review now that we need to escalate, we now have a process in place where we can actually go get that response approved and vetted and the correct information, so that when we respond, we can either provide the correct number or correct information and details to that review, so that an individual then either feels heard, or again, the next person who comes and reads it says, oh, maybe this was just an anomaly. Maybe this person, was upset about something, but it looks like the company's addressing it, and they've provided information to try to help. And so we were able to go through, and again, since May, have 100% on our reviews, making sure that we are able to respond to every one of them. So one of the other things that I put together, and this is something, again, that everybody can do, and Chris highlighted so many of the powerful tools that already exist. I created a State of the Union monthly report. State of the Union, right? It's just, here's what we are. And I actually create one of these for each of the social profiles and assets that we're part of. And we use this report. We send it out every month. And basically it just highlights each of the platform's performance And some of the things that we're trying to do on social media and some of the platforms that exist like Glassdoor to make sure that executives and leadership management all are aware of what we're doing and the direction that we're going. It needed to be high level and easy to understand. I felt it needed to have visuals and try to tell a story with the data. Most executives are familiar with seeing graphs and pie charts and competitor comparisons. These are all the tools and resources that Glassdoor already has. And simply, I know I've kind of made it a little bit blurry there. This is our actual report. I just kind of blurred it out because of all the data that's on there. But you can see that all of those things, even though blurred out, are the same things that Chris just reviewed, right? We have our candidate profile demographic. We have our competitor comparison. We have the keyword little word clouds and word bubbles. That's probably my favorite thing that exists because just quickly you can see, what people are saying. What are the key words that people are saying, positive or negative? And then as well, we also provide, just the company, the CEO, the outlook, and those things right off the bat to say, this is who we are. This is who we are as a company. This is the direction that we're going. This is what people are saying about the CEO. We've gone up in visitors to the site, or we've gone down, or the reviews have gone up, or we had this many reviews during the month. Those are all the kind of things that we try to create in the report, and it goes out every month. And again, Jenna does a fantastic job of organizing the data. And when she came onto the team, I said, I basically just screenshot and I copy and paste based on that PDF that Glassdoor already provides. So if you do nothing else, click on the PDF. For us, it was about 11 pages. I didn't want an 11-page document. I wanted it in one page. So as we send it to the executive leaders, they'd only have to look at one page rather than 11. And so basically, I just took that data that was on the 11 pages, and then I shrunk it, cropped it, put some speaking points next to each one of them and said, here's the information that's important. Here's the things that you ought to see and you ought to know, and then highlighted some of that information. But as you can see, again, just from the image, they're all the things that Chris just identified that you have access to in the employer resources to be able to tell your story and share the information. And then this monthly report gets sent to the Director of Talent Acquisition, the Vice President of Talent Management and Organizational Development, and the Senior Vice President or the Head of HR at Alcon. And then they share that with other individuals throughout the company and throughout the other partners that we work with inside of the parent company. And so this information is shared with our executive leaders as well. And so that becomes something that then we can start to say, okay, what do we need to change? What's happening? What's going on out there? They don't have to guess. They have data right in front of them to be able to say, oh, here's this graph. It shows that our candidate demographic is such. Or why are our competitors seem to be doing better than we are in this area? Or compare benefits package. Whatever the case is, right? All that information is right there, and it's easy to read and it's easy to use. And so this is something I've been sending out for a year. And like I said, when Jana came in, I was so swamped that I wasn't able to continue to put out a monthly, and so I was starting to do a quarterly. And when she came on board, I said, we've really got to do this a monthly report again. And so she took it up, and she pulls the data and the information, again, screenshotting, off the PDF or just copying and pasting off the PDF and then putting it into our own document that then we send out to executives. But all the information is there. You don't have to go recreate anything. It's so helpful to make sure that that information is there for the executives so that they can see it and understand. And as Chris talked about too, right, involve leadership, making sure that they understand what's being said about the company, and maybe they can start to affect change when they start to see patterns and other things like that. And so lastly, I believe that feedback really is your friend. Candid feedback has helped me improve personally and professionally throughout my life and my career. And so when you have that trusted associate that comes to you and says, hey, I want to just share a couple things with you. What can you do? Or here's some things that maybe you could do to improve. I welcome that. Glassdoor provides that. You have associates, employees that currently work for you, that have worked for you, that have gone through an interview process, that are going to share information, and it might be painful or it might be hard to hear, but feedback can be your friend because you can make change. So what did we do with that feedback? We were able to improve our overall rating. Now, Alcon sits at a 3.0, and when I got there it was a 3.0, and we set a goal to move to 3.2. And we did everything that we could to make sure that we followed the right way to grow and increase and provide great opportunities for people to respond. And so even though we had a change out of a CEO earlier in the year, even though we experienced a lot of things like many companies do, hiring freezes or internal changes that would have normally resulted in some kind of a downturn in rating. We stayed at 3.0 during all of that. But we were actually able to increase our overall rating as soon as we started engaging. And so we were able to re-engage employees and use real people's reviews to be able to create images that you see there on the right. What are people saying about the company? How do they feel about the company? What are the things that individuals are saying? And so we actually put together a project. We met with some associates. We said, hey, can we take your picture? Would you mind sharing with us why you like working at the company? We're going to use these in social media and other places that we can kind of share your story. So we're able to engage associates. And when employees saw their peers sharing information, they were thrilled. And so this has been a great project. And you see the smiling faces and quotes about the company and why people work there. So we've taken the handcuffs off associates to say, hey, let's talk about the company. And so even though we had opportunity because of what was going on to maybe move down in our rating, we actually moved up to 3.1. And you might say that isn't a huge, change, 3.0 to 3.1. What's huge? It really is. It's a huge thing. And we did it the good old-fashioned way of just inviting people to write reviews during the onboarding, because I also manage the onboarding and facilitate the orientation. I invite every one of the new associates. Over the next couple of weeks, we invite you to rate your interview experience. What was it like? We'll share that information with our recruiters, help them to make the experience good for the next associate who they're working with. So we invite them then. We also invite them to review the company as part of the 30, 60, 90 plan. That by the end of the first year, there's actually a written down goal to leave a review on Glassdoor about the company, right? You have one chance every year to review the company. So within the first year, let's go ahead and review the company. And again, please, if it's positive, be positive. If it's negative, share so we can learn from that and we can grow. And so what could have been a time of turmoil and negativity during the changes and everything else that was going on within the company, and it goes on with a lot of companies, we were able to maximize that because of the data. We were able to see that what we needed to do. We were able to respond and engage with every associate so that we never let the ball drop, right? We continued to have kind of control to some degree, right, because there are anonymous reviews and people say whatever they want, but we were able to respond. We were able to be engaged in part of the conversation. And so we were able to spotlight what was happening from the data to our executives and other leaders. And so from that, I believe that we were able to use the tools that Chris has highlighted and that Glassdoor provides. And if you have any of those questions, you can talk to your account manager. You can download resources about how to respond, how to review, how to respond to your reviews on Glassdoor. All those resources are available. All I've done today is show some of the things that we're doing and that we've had success doing. And overall, we've had a fantastic experience with Glassdoor, and we continue to see growth and opportunities. And the reviews continue to come in, positive and negative, and we're going to respond to every one of them and report on them using the tools that we've showcased today.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Cody. Really, really cool to see real-world examples of how companies use this data. You can look at graphs and charts and pie charts and different things like that in the examples that I shared, but what Cody really highlighted was how he uses those to help impact the organization in a positive way. And so ultimately what we want people to understand is after this call, there are things you can do today to start leveraging this data and affecting change within the organization. First and foremost, you can access this employer center that we've been talking about. If you just simply go to employers.glassdoor.com, you should be able to access your free employer account. It doesn't cost anything, and it allows you the ability to see some of that basic data that we've been looking at today. As long as you have a company email address and a title that's in marketing, HR, recruiting, or social media, you should be able to have access to this platform starting today. We'll literally, within the next 5 minutes, we hope to see a lot of people jump on that. And just as a quick recap, think about it. You can lean on interview feedback and refine those processes, and you can ultimately just dig into the reviews. And if we take a step back and really look at what all this means, as we said, and I know it's cliche, your people are your company's most valuable asset. And those assets are out there talking about their real-life experiences with your organization, and your future assets are reading that and forming an opinion about your company. And as recruitment teams and as talent acquisition teams go forth in that war for talent, you should be as well prepared and as knowledgeable about what's being said about your company as the people who are thinking about working there. And hopefully, at the end of the day, you can get leadership engaged. It's hard. One of the top questions I get is, how do I get my leadership team to care about this kind of stuff? And hopefully today was helpful in seeing examples from what Cody has done to get his leadership team to care more about this. But at the end of the day, the feedback is there, it's transparent, it's open, and it's available to you. Big key takeaways, if you get nothing else but this. Just take the time to watch, learn, and listen, and pay attention to what this data is telling you, and hopefully, like Cody's done, you can use your findings to affect change. So I will go ahead and pass it back to our wonderful moderator, Nina, who's gotten some questions throughout the conversation today, and she can pass those along.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. And first off, just thank you both to Cody and Chris for all the wonderful information that you've shared with us today. For those of you that have not yet asked a question but you would like to, please do so by just typing your question into that Q&A chat box you'll see on the left-hand side. And for all those of you that did ask, we will be sending out the recording and presentation post-webinar. Due to the holiday, it should hit around Monday, so just be on the lookout for that. All right, so the first question that we have in the queue, this one is directed at you, Cody. The question is, how did Alcon encourage/invite current employees to be brand ambassadors? Was there an email sent to employees asking them to leave a review on Glassdoor, or what was your process in doing so?
That's a great question. And we talked about a lot of things to try to engage the associates, and so we did a handful. Number one, as I mentioned, we decided to make it part of our onboarding, and so every new associate, right, you have them right there to invite them to go in and to leave a review on Glassdoor. The second thing is that we reached out to some specific people that we'd all worked with that we said, hey, who do you think would be able to talk about the company and what they like about the company? And then we put together a photo shoot and we invited people, and again, it was opt-in, and just said, hey, you like working here. Would you like to say why you like working here and just share it? And we're going to take some photos. And then we invited them to leave a review on Glassdoor. We didn't do anything to incentivize them other than we just tapped into the passion that they already had. People are thrilled to work for the company that they work for in most cases. And so it's just letting them kind of gush about it. And so we did that. And then the third thing is that we looked at our long tail onboarding process and said, where can we write in an opportunity where people can go back? And so we put that in part of our 30, 60, 90 plan. And then in my cubicle, in Jana's cubicle, and then other emails, we sometimes will send out to all of our recruiters to just invite them to share the information about Glassdoor reviewing with candidates. And so as they're going through the interview process and they're talking with a candidate, they say something like, hey, if you had a good experience, we'd love to hear from you on Glassdoor. Would you mind leaving a review? And again, nothing's mandated or forced. It's all by invitation. So we invite the recruiters to make that part of their phone calls. We invite new associates. And then we just did kind of a meet and greet, invited people that we knew loved the company to come and do a little photo shoot with us.
Perfect. Thank you, Cody. The next question I have, I'm going to direct this one at you, Chris, although I think Cody may be able to chime in as well. So the question is, how do you really take this competitive data and use it to analyze how you stack up against your competition and spotlight areas where you need to improve?
So if you think specifically about the competitor comparisons tool within the Glassdoor dashboard, what it's showing you is each basic area that your current and former employees have rated the company. So that may be culture and values, that may be benefits and compensation, or it may just be the overall rating. And what a lot of companies I work with do is they look at how they stack up against the companies that they typically feel their candidates are also interviewing at. For AT&T retail stores, this may be Verizon Wireless and T-Mobile and Sprint and Target and Walmart. And what they'll do is they'll look at what areas they really do shine. Where do we have higher ratings than our competitors? And when the recruiting teams are talking to potential candidates, they're able to highlight those positives. Hey, you talked as a candidate, let's say, that work-life balance is really important to you. I don't know if you noticed, but on Glassdoor, our work-life balance rating is a 3.9 out of 5. And I know a couple of the other companies you're looking at, their candidates and employees have said that their work-life balance rating is actually a 3.1. So you can look at the data and determine where you may be a little better off than some of your competition, and also the other way around as well.
Perfect. Thanks, Chris. The next question that we have in the queue, I'm going to direct this one to you, Cody. The question is, can you share what your response protocol is? We struggle with maintaining timely responses given how many hands are in the pot with our review process.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's one that we struggle with as well. And it just speaks, to the sensitivity and that everybody is concerned about what's being said about the company. And it's no different, right? Each of us as an individual have our own brand, and we're all very respectful of our own identity and our own brand, and we're concerned when people have, negative things said about us as individuals. So it makes sense. So a couple things that we did. First of all, as I mentioned, we wrote down some phrases that we felt like, these are things that we could do. We got that approved through our legal and corporate communications. Just say, here are the type of responses that we would give to reviews that would be positive or negative, but not severely negative. And so we just said, wrote them down. We'll mix and match them. They approved that. So that deals with most of what we had to do. So that way we're able to respond in real time automatically without having to go seek additional approval. And there is some trust there, right? We gave examples and said, and this was something that Jana did. She tediously went through and she copied and pasted, I don't know, probably 50 or more reviews and said, these are the kind of reviews we're getting, and these are the type of responses we'd like to give. And then that was part of our plan, was to submit that, to say, here's the type of reviews and here's the responses, and then we want these 25 approved. And so that worked because they were able to see, and then that built in the trust to say, okay, based on this type of review, they're going to respond in this way. That makes sense. Then the protocol is that we reach out when someone leaves a negative response that's specific or, says something that's not true or has some kind of legal implication, that we're not doing something, not compliant, something like that. Then what we do is we then have a protocol in place where I reach out specifically to our corporate communications to say, here's the response, here's the review. Here's a suggested response. So I initiate the response because I found that if you can do that, that usually is half the battle. So I'll write a response that I think is good. I'll try to include either a 1-800 number or an email address, not of a specific person necessarily, but kind of a catch-all email for the group that they maybe have written a review about. And then in that response, I just say, here's the suggested response. I send that to our corporate communications, who then forwards that to legal after they have made any edits or suggestions, because sometimes they'll change it, or they'll say, this is a better number or a better email, or let's say this instead of that. And so then they'll take what I've written, they make some edits, then they send it to legal. Legal looks at it, and usually by then, they only have 1 or 2, if any, changes that then they'll send back to corporate communications and to me, and usually with the instructions of go ahead and post it. Rarely have we had something have to go beyond that process. And if it does, it just means that we might have to rewrite it, or we might have to, add additional information by reaching out to the department or group that maybe the review is specifically about, so that we can maybe talk to them and just say, hey, are you aware of this, or could you speak to this a little bit? But most of the time the protocol is we go to corporate communications, they go to legal after I have written kind of a response, and then they make edits, and then that's why we're able to cut it down to the same day, is because I write it, they edit it, they approve it, they send it back.
Yeah, and one more thing to add to Cody's response, and you touched on it right there at the very end. In terms of protocol, what we do at Glassdoor is if there's a review in client services, that gets sent directly to the Vice President of Client Services. And if there's a review from a sales rep, it goes immediately to the Vice President of Sales. And they formulate their own response, whether or not it's legal approved or not. Some companies are larger than others and have to have some of that approval in place. But for us, it's a genuine response to both positive and negative from the head of that specific department, which speaks volumes to potential candidates who see that it's not just a generic response, but it's a response from the person that individual ultimately reported into at the end of the day, and it shows that they care about that feedback in their specific department.
Awesome. Thank you both, Chris and Cody. The next question, Cody, I'm going to direct this one to you. It says, we have a lean HR team, so how do you suggest really compiling all of the data that we can grab and raising it to upper management in an effective way?
That's a great question, too. I'm not going to try to, make something up. It helps if leaders are already a little bit responsive to it. And we had a leader who was already responsive and kind of a champion and wanted to see what we could do. And so that helps. And not everybody's going to have that, but that was huge for us. It kind of, put the crack in the door that we could open. Even if you don't have a large HR team, you have to designate some time. It does require time. And even if it was, a half hour a day, or if you were able to carve out an hour a week to be able to respond. I wanted to be able to respond in my mind real time. That's the power and genesis of social media, is real time responding. That may not be true for you. If you can respond one time during a week and you can designate an hour and it's a team of only a couple of you, and you can say, you know what, let's tackle this, me one week, you the other week, then you're only spending 2 hours a month responding to reviews. That's doable. You just have to set the time out, carve it out like you would a meeting. Say, I'm going to go in, I'm going to look at the emails, I'm going to set those reminders, and I'm going to go and do it. And then again, to pull the data, for me, I wanted to have a certain look for the report that I was doing because, again, I create a report for each of the profiles and accounts that we have. Glassdoor is just one of many. And so I wanted to have a one page for Glassdoor as with the other platforms. So I just copied and pasted the stuff from the PDF and put it into one document. If you don't have time to do that, simply you go to the employer resources, you click on, the insights or the data piece, and Chris can talk about that, but you click on, it says PDF up in the top right hand, you download it, and if you had to send that, that would be enough to leaders just to say, hey, just wanted to point out a couple things. On page 5, you'll notice a graph. You could do it that way, and again, I really think it's something that you could do an hour a week, and not be overwhelmed or burdened with it, but you would have to spend some time doing it, but I think it's doable.
Awesome. Thanks, Cody. And the next question I have, Chris, this one is directed at you. It says, how can I get access to all of the analytics that you mentioned?
So first step is employers.glassdoor.com. That is the URL that will allow you to unlock your free employer profile. And again, as a reminder, you should be automatically approved as long as you have a company email address and your job title is in HR, recruitment, marketing, or social media. If you have any trouble at all, you can click the Contact Us button that's there at the bottom of that little page, and it will allow someone to get you in. And if you happen to be a current client of Glassdoor, just simply reach out to your account manager or ask whoever is involved in that relationship to connect you with that individual. We love helping people out with data. One of the things that my team has become really good at is helping companies analyze this data just like Cody does and bring context to it, because graphs and charts are great, but it helps to have some context behind that, and Cody's good at doing that on his own. But if you have a lean HR team, don't be afraid as a client to pass some of that on to us as account managers to help you better understand your investment and strategy with Glassdoor.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. So it looks like we have time just for one more question. So the question is, and I'll open this up to either Cody or Chris or both to answer. The question is, what is the best way to respond to negative reviews?
Well, I'll take a stab and then Chris can fix it. How about that? First of all, you just have to tackle it. And second is just being honest. And sometimes it just depends. Again, as we talked about, whether legal is involved or not, if someone had a bad experience, I was always taught to just say, I'm sorry. And legally, maybe you're not able to go into details and things like that, but usually in my first draft that I always send off, it's just like, I'm really sorry that you had this experience, or, I'm sorry that you feel this way. And I think it's just part of, human nature to address that and acknowledge it. Sometimes maybe someone is being overly negative or unfair, and so it's just, again, addressing it in a way that I think is understanding and saying thank you for providing the feedback. We appreciate you taking some time. Your feedback will allow us to make some changes in the area that you've talked about. And so just simple things like that, but I think addressing it and then just trying to be honest, and then where you can, apologetic a little bit to let them know that you care.
Yeah, and
awesome.
One thing to add to that, a great response, Cody, is, real simple trick. You can actually do a Google search, and this is how I find stuff to send to clients. Just search responding to negative reviews on Glassdoor, and we've actually done webinars just like this one, specifically on that topic. We've written blog posts. We've had guest writers write information about their company's best practices. There are already, as I just did the search right now, 6 or 7 different articles and FAQ documents of how to respond to negative feedback.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. It looks like we are right at the top of the hour, so with that, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today, as well as giving an extra special thank you to both Chris and Cody once again for sharing all that information with us. And with that, I will let everyone go, and we will catch you next time. Thanks, everyone.